It was the summer between freshman and sophomore year of high school. And he played the drums in marching bands, so the great big bass drum. So there was band camp that summer, and he's one of the kind of bigger, swarthy kids. So getting all the equipment onto the field and then back. So he was constantly helping kind of the other kids and his own heavy drum. So he comes home and he's like, Mom, my arm is hurting. It's been hurting. And I told him, well, mijo, you've been lifting all these heavy things. You haven't done a whole lot all summer. Of course, you're going to be sore. So then a couple of weeks go by, school starts, and he says, Mom, my arm is really hurting. It's getting worse. So I talked to my colleagues at work, and they said, oh, well, let's just give him some kind of extra strength ibuprofen and send him to physical therapy. It still wasn't getting better, and I happened to have lunch with my brother-in-law, who is a physician here in San Antonio, and he tells me, Nick, I'm telling him the story, and he says, Nick isn't really somebody who complains a lot. You don't want to get a CT scan or an MRI of that arm that's bothering him? And I said, well, sure, let's do it. So we did. We got a CT scan, and unfortunately, there was something there. So then we went back and got an MRI scan, and sure enough, he had a big 8-centimeter tumor in his left humerus, and he was 15 years old, about to start sophomore year of high school. I think we still had a lot of hope, 15 years old, cancer, no, that's not what happens. And so we stayed calm, and I'm a physician, and so I believe in Western medicine, and we have a lot of faith too. So we were like, no, this isn't what God wants for us. This isn't what's going to happen.
My Healers Heart provides support for families battling childhood, adolescent, young adult cancer. So it's not just the patient, it's the families that we're going to provide them support and help them thrive through that diagnosis or the conditions that the family or the children are going through.
So yeah, we stayed calm and hopeful, but then sure enough, it came back, osteosarcoma. We found out on a Monday, and by that Friday, he was already admitted and starting chemo, and no more school. And this was right before COVID. This was in 2018. So yeah, he stopped going to school, and we started full-time treatment. He did chemo and all that for about 3 months, and then he went in for surgery. So what they do is they remove the entire bone, and he had a cadaver bone placed. So yeah, 15 years old and a major surgery, and then more chemo and treatment and stuff for a few more months. Looking back, we weren't even worried. We were just positive that the chemo was going to work. He had the surgery, the tumor was gone. I didn't really have to, and I raised him to be, strong and independent and stuff, and to believe in physicians and in medicine, and we weren't really worried. It's crazy. In retrospect, we should have been worried. We had a lot of faith. We had a lot of prayers, a lot of people praying for us and with us, and I was just sure, and he was too. We were sure we were going to come out of it, and we did. He went into remission for a few months, but then you have to have CT scans every so often to make sure, and he had those he had another CT scan, and it was back, but this time it was back in his lungs. It was just awful. It was awful. I a million times over wish I was in his place, and it could have been me and not him. But that's not what happened. And one of the problems you may know is that very little research funding goes to pediatric cancer. Most of it is for adults. Most of it is for breast cancer, and that's fine. Of course, we need all that, but shouldn't our children come first? Shouldn't there be more screenings or awareness for sure, but the actual research, because they don't even have new cancer drugs for our children. It's the same stuff since the 60s.
When I've had people present come to our office or we'll meet them, even on the healthcare side, other than the pediatric department, I'll ask them, and this is not to make them feel bad, is, do you know when Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month is? And the answer is no. But everybody knows when breast cancer awareness is, which is phenomenal. That's an important thing to be out there. But why are the children forgotten? I'm still trying to figure it out. Is it because it tugs at your heartstrings and you don't want to think of a child going through pain? But the reality is that they are. And how do we support these families? So my biggest job is trying to let people know that we exist.
Most parents, one has to at least quit their job to be able to handle going to all the appointments and the treatments and everything. Well, I didn't have that luxury because it was just me and Nick. Dr. Leanne recommended Mahilas to us, and they helped us pay some bills. And then they just stayed on the radar for Leanne. Actually, after Nick passed, she said, they also offer these spa days for parents afterwards. And it took me a whole year after he died before I was like, you know what, I think I'll take that spa day.
In Texas alone, over 2,000 children were diagnosed with pediatric cancer under the age of 14. That's just Texas, that's in 2024. The average death for a child with cancer in the state of Texas is 200. You know what the national average is? 1,800. We're a big state, but we're taking a big part of that percentage. And when I've spoken to people, unfortunately, when people say, well, cancer is like 1% of what children get, and they go into that spiel, it's not really a big deal. That's very insensitive to say something like that to families that are battling, that it could be your neighbors, could be the people you work with. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to bring. It's not trying to make them feel bad. It's the reality of where we're at today.
Usually one parent has to quit their job to be able to be available for treatments, for appointments, for the aftermath of the treatment, because it's not like you go home from the hospital and you can go back to work the next day. No, your child still needs somebody there. They're going to stay sick for a while. So that financial support matters for the families in the middle of the battle. And that's where Mahilas comes in for the local support as more and more children are diagnosed. Blessings Way, that's the one that I was a part of when it was in the middle of the battle. I mean, I didn't have to worry about my electricity bill for 2 months. That's basically what got covered. You don't have time to worry about those things. You really don't. And it's not going to just miraculously disappear. So that's where Blessings Way comes in. And then Survivor's Way, I don't know how many survivors we've had. I think just a handful, unfortunately. But bringing them into the fold, that matters too, because they can mentor the younger kids in the middle of the battle. So of course we want to support them in any way we can. There are more and more families in need constantly, and I hope that we get to keep helping them through that battle. Now, I wish there weren't more families, but that's not the reality we live in. And so I just hope that we can keep being there and keep supporting in any way possible. I hope we continue to grow in our membership as far as our volunteers and our donors. And so we can keep being a presence in San Antonio and help these families through. And hopefully we can start seeing more survivors too. If we get more donations for research, let's increase our Survivor's Way and not our Blessings Way.
Unity is important. The only way to get things accomplished in our community, if we get together, work together, and then accomplish it.
It sounds crazy, but I'm lucky in a way that Nick was already 17 when he passed. He got to do a lot more than many. I mean, many children, my friends lost their kids at 7 years old and 11 years old, and they were still too little to really comprehend what was going on. At least Nick already had some maturity about him, and he had gotten to live and go to high school, and he was a big prankster, and he had fun, and he got to be in marching band. He had a girlfriend that they exchanged rings 2 days before he passed away. Yeah, he got to live more than most pediatric cases do.